Hey, what's up guys? Framinthor here. Just want to make a quick video as a feedback to the new Ashes of Creation tank showcase. I have a few pointers. A small disclaimer before I begin though. Just because I'm giving feedback doesn't mean I hate the game. What I'm not giving feedback on, in my opinion, looks amazing. I think the gameplay looks incredible. I feel like this is gonna be probably a very good game. However, the feedback is there so the game can be even better. Things that I find that could be an issue later on. And it usually takes a lot of small issues to make people not willing to play a game as good as the game will end up being. So, yeah, doesn't mean I hate the game, but there are some things that I think the game can improve on. Okay, let's start with the first one, target UI and nameplates. This one I noticed pretty much a minute into when the combat started in the video. I would like to see a better indication of the target you are facing. This is not really an issue when you're facing 1 to 3 monsters, but when there's like 10, 12 monsters, what if it's a boss that spawns ads and things like that? I would like to see a better indication of the targets, a better nameplating, as well as maybe an HP bar and buffs, debuffs above the enemy's heads, even the ones you are not currently targeting. So for example, a boss spawns ads, you need to kill them as soon as possible. However, you need to kill them in a certain order, or someone is already being attacked, has less HP, you want to focus target that one, things like that. It's going to be really hard to choose your target specifically if you can't see what the target status is before you are aiming at it. As we saw in this tank spotlight, basically you couldn't really tell who the enemy was targeting. You couldn't really tell who had the aggro, even though the tank might start the pull. The aggro drops really fast. However, it takes a bit to understand that the aggro dropped. The mob moves towards a friendly target. The friendly target, if you're on Discord or anything like that, can say it's like the target is on me and stuff like that. But let's assume people playing online usually don't have voice chat enabled automatically. A lot of people that would party would usually just, maybe type to converse with each other, and this would create a lot of problem regarding aggro. Now, some games, for example World of Warcraft, solve this with having aggro meters with UI. I don't think it's actually like a WoW feature. I think it's an add-on feature. I don't remember. However, in my opinion, the easiest solution would be just have a UI element that shows target of target, whoever the target is facing. And I know what you can say, that's like, well, this is not very immersive, and if this was the real world, you wouldn't be able to tell who someone is facing. I'm like, yeah, you could actually tell if someone is switching targets. It's like let's say you have a bar fight and you're facing, it's like 2-on-2. You can tell when the other guy almost instantly, when he's about to hit your friend instead of hitting you. Okay, like you can tell who who has the aggro, right? And unfortunately, this is not happening in games right now. You won't be able to tell very fast who the mob is targeting. So, in my opinion, target of target UI element, basically whoever your target is facing, would help you understand who has the aggro a lot faster, with less need of communicating with your parties regarding that, so everyone can just focus on damage and healing and stuff like that. During the video, they talked about having different groups for different areas, basically enemies having strengths and weaknesses. Some enemies will require more CC, some enemies will be just bad to have melee for, so you bring more range and things like that. And overall, on paper, this sounds pretty good.
And obviously, the way that we kind of design the encounter for these types of areas is that certain monsters will have certain types of strengths and weaknesses. Those, of course, will correlate to certain types of class kits. So some areas might be more beneficial for you to kind of XP in versus others. Um, and a big role in that non-solo gameplay, of course, is going to be group composition, right?
Yeah, that's one thing I really love about our diverse class kits that we have available to us in Ashes is the diverse content that comes along with that, right? Like for an optimal group for one area might involve, 3 or 4 ranged DPS, but another area you might want to stack fighters for all their CC that they can bring. So different groups for different areas.
But my concern is that if you play with friends that are always pretty much the same group, as far as I know, you can't really just change your spec, you can't really change your class or anything like that. You have one class that can do this, and if you want another one that does something, you have to make another class, which would create many problems for certain locations. This would make it so some groups are rather non-viable in some locations while being extremely good for others. But what if a player can't find specific class combination to tackle certain areas because he needs something from that area? What if a certain class is really good for most unpopular content but isn't too good for other content? Would that make less people play that class? Depending on the content, obviously. Of course, this can be addressed as balancing the classes in such a way that this can be prevented, but then if the classes would be balanced enough to overcome this problem, why make this an issue to begin with? I am mostly talking about elemental resistances and physical resistances in this case, but the melee versus range differences, it's a known issue in games. It is like I don't even think there is a solution for that. Right? It's like some mechanics will just require you to not bring any melee because this boss or whatever does a lot of AoE damage and it's just easier to bring ranged DPS. I get that. But the problem with like elemental damage is if you're a mage, you are just a mage, right? It's like, let's say you are a frost mage, right? You can only do frost damage. You cannot be useful at all in a situation when there's frost resistance compared to like everyone else. Meanwhile, same with like physical resistance, right? There's a physical resistance. An archer or a melee character usually can't bring anything other than his physical damage. So that is a big problem. However, when you look at a case like melee versus ranged, even though you would prefer ranged, there's still plenty of windows of where melee can deal damage, right? Or similar to it's like, well, you want to bring melee because they bring a lot more CC, whereas the range doesn't bring any CC. Yeah, but that's usually not that big of a deal breaker, right? So that's kind of like what my point is when it comes to like specific elemental resistances, weaknesses, physical resistance and stuff like that. This can cause a big problem for like specific classes unless there's like elemental attunements you can change your abilities to and things like that. But then if you can to solve this problem, then why cause this problem to begin with? I understand it's for immersion, things like that, but it just feels very like not useless. It just feels very tedious. Not in a good way, right? It's like, well, we're going to this area now, so everyone has to return to town. By the way, in this game, there's like almost no teleport, so you'll probably have to run to town in order to change some of your abilities to make them elemental attuned to go to that place in order to fight that. And then if you want to switch place, you have to go to town, change elemental again. It's like, it's like, if you can change on the fly, that's cool. But if you can change it on the fly, then kind of like, what's the point, right? Unless it was something that was like hard to achieve and like it's an unlock process. Like, hey, listen, I want to add fire element to my arrows. I have to go through these chain of quests and like kill these mobs and learn and whatever hours on end, so then you can unlock fire element and then you can use in areas. That would be kind of cool, right? Kind of like a completionist for your archer. But I don't think that is the direction that Ashes of Creation is going, and that's why I'm kind of concerned about these elemental resistances if you're gonna have classes that just have one elemental damage. And lastly, the tank didn't really look very interesting to me. It looked very cooldown dependent, not very action combat-y in my opinion. Yes, I know there's the regular weapon swings and the active block. That's cool and all, but it looks like you just charge in, blow your load, and then you wait for cooldowns. Doesn't feel a very good mechanic. It just doesn't have a very good feeling. It's not groundbreaking on any level. Just feels very similar to pretty much any other quote-unquote WoW clone, right? I honestly, I don't mind having classes that are like, very classic in that regard, where it's like you just wait for cooldowns, you blow your load, button is ready, button is pressed. But I would love to see more ideas around classes, such as an energy generation spender, maybe a proc, maybe a condition, maybe a combo, things like that. By condition, I mean like if you block at a certain time, you can activate a certain ability, things like that. A combo would be like if you press 1, your 2 will do more damage, then your 3 will do more damage. So very similar to Final Fantasy combat. However, the problem is Final Fantasy is all combos. There's not a lot of energy type of management and procs and stuff like that. I would love to see a variety of combat systems per class, so each class will play very differently rather than just, well, I'm ranged, so I'm pressing my cooldowns button from a distance. Well, I'm melee, so I'm pressing my cooldown buttons from this distance, right? Oh, I'm a mage, so I'm pressing my cooldown buttons, and there's a cast time. I would rather not have that, which is a very similar to World of Warcraft right now. I would rather have a variety of different systems, and each class will play very, very differently. But, that's just me. Maybe that's not the direction of the game, but in my opinion, having a variety of how classes play and feel so different can be a really, really good addition to the game. But with that, this is the end of the video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.